What's up, guys? We are going to take a look at Vuelta a Burgos Stage 2, sprint stage. Pretty simple. We're going to look at the last 3K because that's really tells the whole story. Comes down to a bunch sprint, of course, but the first thing that's important to see here is its tailwind. You really can't tell other than the speed and the way they're riding. 55 kilometers an hour up a roller, clearly a tailwind all the way into the finish. So that means that every movement that's made is going to be really exaggerated at the back. So all these surges these teams are doing to fight on the front, in the back, it's going to be even harder. And as we head into the final sprint, positioning is going to be everything. One jump, one little move, that's going to create a gap in that tailwind. It's going to be impossible to close at these speeds. We know that there's going to be a right-hand turn in a right about 250, 300 to go. Going to be tricky with a roundabout into that turn. Basically, you're going to have to be in the first 5 into that. So here we are. We see CCC on the front, peeling off. Looks like they got the timing of their pole a little bit better today. You see all the players, the GC riders up there. Again, you see that shuffle that we were talking about yesterday with the washing machine, how riders are having to move up on the sides using their teammates or other riders, and then they kind of fall back in the center of the peloton. So you'll see here's Lotto on the left side here, or our left side. They're moving up. And then we have Francis Jejou doing the same. We have Israel Cycling Academy doing the same. This looks a lot like you would see in a Tour de France because of the tailwind. It doesn't really matter how strong you are. If you're up here, you're able to really, really stay here because the speed is so high. There's not much draft behind. You're not going to see that typical, swarming coming from behind that you would see with a headwind. We just saw a quick step take the front. We see Francis Jejou pulling off. Here we're coming 1K to go. We're going over 60 kilometers an hour. It's just madness. We see what we talked about yesterday, how when you're doing the lead out, you want to stay on one side of the road. We see them all on the left side of the road. Very good from Quick Step in their move. You can hear Sloan in the background. She's like, Dad, you better hurry up this meeting or this video because I want to hang out. You can see in the front there is Quick Step doing a really awesome job. We can see Gaviria just a little bit back here. You can see a lot of pushing and fighting, and you can see that Gaviria right there he's on third wheel going into this. We see Francis Jejou with a phenomenal positioning here coming into the final turn. There is a crash that we'll be able to see in a second. And then there's Gaviria with a massive jump there at about 300 to go with that tailwind. And that initial snap was able to create an amazing gap. Again, the speed is so high that once you get that gap, there's nothing you can do. So let's go back and look at that replay here of that final kilometer, of that final section. And we'll be able to see exactly how that went, how that played, how positioning was super, super uber important into that right-hand turn, and how critical it's going to be, to get out of that turn safely. So we have this dude over here. Looks like he crashed. He's the guy that went down in the corner. We're having a look at him right now. It's never good to be the guy that crashes in the final turn. Looks like he's all right. It always amazes me too, like how the sprinters are able to crash at 50, 60 kilometers an hour and they're fine. Climbers, we don't have the same build, the same muscles. When we hit the ground, it's super, super gnarly. So let's see if we can find the replay of that last kilometer. It's coming up here in a second. So, here's a homie that crashed. Bummer again. No one likes that. Luckily, he's all right. And then for those of you that don't know, if you crash in the last kilometer, or excuse me, the last 3K, you get the same time as the winner. Here's a nice shot of Gaviria's victory. You can see super good jump. You can see his body position is awesome. Super forward over the bike, super low. And it really was his snap out of that turn, what we're going to see when we get that overhead shot, that really resulted in that victory. Super, super fast, but a lot of sprinters, people really obsess on, and here we're going to take a look at it. I'm going to hit pause real quick. So real quick, I just want to say a lot of people obsess on maximum power, but it's really sprinting is a combination of that initial snap and, of course, positioning. So you'll see my cursor right here. We got Gaviria in third wheel. We have the two fronts as Jiu riders. Then we have these riders in here that are trying to fight for position. You can see that the right-hand turn, you're going to want to go wide, so be on the left side of the road, and then you're going to want to cut in across the turn. And you can already see these riders bunching right here. What we're going to see is probably a lot of riders that are coming on the inside, fighting for position and hoping the riders that are on the outside below the turn, they're going too fast. So here we are. We're going to take a look at it. Now, again, here's Gaviria in the front, so Jiu riders all the way on the wide, going into the turn wide. You see all these homies on the inside. They're not setting up the turn right. These first riders are setting it up. You can see them start to cut. Boom. Let's have a look at this right here. We can see these riders cutting a perfect line. You can see these riders already starting to have trouble. Okay. Boom. We see a rider go down here. This causes a problem. And ultimately, this is what causes a split in the field. Anytime someone falls in the peloton, and this guy fell because of his line selection, right? He was trying to cut in too much, too late in that turn, had a little bit of maybe some oil or white line on the road there. You can see him crashing. But this forces all these guys off their line. Inside here, it forces these riders to break and open up a gap. We can see these riders here already have a gap. I think Gaviria is right here. Let's have a look. Nope, he was second wheel right here. And you can see that he was perfectly positioned, knowing that out of this turn, it's all about that snap. And we know with the tailwind, if you have that massive snap, you're going to be able to hold it. So if you're planning your finish lines or you're planning your attack, right, there's two things you want to take into consideration. Number one, and this is what Gaviria did, the places to attack or start your sprint or your jump is when the speed goes from slow to fast. Like if you have, a lot of lead out trains, you don't really get that opportunity. However, a lot of these riders, they can jump because their explosive power is so high that they do go from slow to fast. And that initial snap is what creates the gap behind. If you don't have that snap when you're going 70K an hour or 60K an hour and you jump, you're not going to create a gap. You're just going to pull the people right behind you and they're going to slingshot. Number two, that tailwind, right? Like timing is everything. And maybe like under normal circumstances, you would want to wait before you're unleashing your last snap out of this turn. But because of this raging tailwind that we saw with riders going almost 70 kilometers an hour here, you really can't get much more speed than that. So if he snaps in that tailwind and goes early while the other riders are braking slightly behind in this roundabout, he's going to create a gap. So we're going to see that right here. Bam. There's the snap, slow to fast. And this guy, and so what also worked out in Gaviria's favor is this guy was a lead out guy. So homie that went first into that corner was not planning on taking it all the way to the line, and he actually kind of screwed his teammate. So ideally, this homie would have at least sprinted a little bit more out of the roundabout. That's really what gave Gaviria that nice jump. Okay, we can go back and look at that really slightly again. Let's look at that section again. They're coming into the turn. We know that Gaviria actually jumped over. We can see him there. He comes around the guy's lead out. And so here's the problem right there. This is the lead out guy. He should be full gas out of that turn. I know he's pinned from fighting to get into that turn, but knowing it's a turn, knowing it's strung out behind, he probably heard the crash as well. You've got to bring the speed back up. He doesn't have his teammate on his wheel. Gaviria slides right by. But look at this. He hesitates for a second right there. His teammate's boxed in right up against a barrier, okay? Gaviria slipped through, and now he hits that massive acceleration in the tailwind. No chance, City, right? Maybe the rider could, but see, he hesitated right there because his teammate was in the way. These guys are light years behind at this point because of the tailwind. No chance, Ali. There's the gap. And you can see once he gets the gap, homie's trying to get up to speed here because he's coming from a complete stop because of his teammate pinched him up the thing. gets a nice second place, right? But Gaviria with a massive, massive, massive jump here. Amazing. And you can see a bunch of riders behind second and third. Those people were not, they were in the smoking section when Gaviria did his jump. There's the aerial shot again. The gap was so big because the awesome snap, amazing timing from slow to fast out of that turn. Obviously, the Francis Jejou rider helped that scenario by stalling out of the turn. Bad move there. And that opened the door. Gaviria took it, and he was able to go long because of the massive tailwind. All right, that's it. That's my take on stage 2 Vuelta a Burgos. I think tomorrow we got some mountains, so I'm excited to check that out. All right, guys, I hope you liked it. Later.